coming to safety and security a little bit. When something happens today, when a human driver is driving, you have a lot. The driver takes a lot of liability.
Yep.
Now we have different players now. This kind of players did not exist till today. We have the automotive manufacturers, we have the tier 1 suppliers, tier 2 suppliers, and then we have absolutely a new type of player, companies like Uber, Waymo, who are just providing the autonomous driving software for their fleet.
Not to mention the hardware manufacturers who produce the tech, right? The LiDAR, the computer vision, et cetera.
They're the tier 2 and so on in the supply chain. Now the driver is not liable because he's not driving. Mm-hmm. And we have the owner of the vehicle. So who is liable for what?
So you'll probably hear me saying a few times tonight, I'm a huge fan intentionally trying to simplify things. I don't think we need to make this such a complicated question. That said, and I'll get to your question directly in a moment, I do think we need a few new definitions. So again, looking to aviation, we used to talk about pilot and co-pilot or captain and first officer. Really today, the terms that are used are the PF and the PNF, if I said that right. Pilot flying and pilot not flying. Similarly, with autonomous cars, we're going eventually to need, I think I've come up with 4 different categories. So we've got the owner driver, the owner not driving, the owner passenger, and the passenger not owner. Basically, that would be the pure passenger, right? And so I guess my point is that once you have those 4 definitions etched in stone, from there we can then determine liability, right? So if you look at so we said the lowest bound of potential liability. So a non-owner, non-driver, that's the pure passenger, right? Obviously they can't have any liability unless they took some intentional act to, sabotage a system and do some harm, right? Obviously they can't be liable. So what do? You go through the chain of, shall we say, the hierarchy of potential liability targets until you find out the solution. Another aviation analogy, you look at the 777 crash at Heathrow several years ago, British Airways, and they were able to trace the liability all the way to the manufacturer of the fuel. Yeah. Like the actual refinery.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's incredible.
That is incredible. Having said that, I totally understand the analogy that's coming from aviation industry. Compared to autonomous vehicle, the complexity of autopilot is much simpler. We have to accept that. And there will be way too many scenarios compared to aviation.
Yep.
There are 3,500 people dying every year in Germany for car accidents. There were like 100 people died from one plane crash, and the news media was all over it.
Sorry, hang on, 3,000 per year in Germany?
3,500 per year.
So we have nearly that many in the US per month. Granted, the populations are quite different between the countries, but even so, that's just staggering.
The comparison is, although there are way less people dying from the aviation industry, the focus is heavily toward that, and the car accidents don't get that much of focus. It's so regular, but the volume is huge. Now, if the manufacturer will have to take that kind of liability in the same fashion as aviation industry, it is going to be a risky game for them, don't you think?
Intuitively, yeah. On the other hand, we've already seen some manufacturers come out and accept that fully, right? So Volvo. Volvo said a few years ago, I think it was part of their Vision 2020 mission statement. They said, look, no human will ever be killed or seriously injured in any Volvo ever. And if they are, we will accept full liability. Boom. I mean, that's pretty cool.
That's bold, yes.
Yeah, but when you think about it, it's not just bold, it's also necessary, because to the point that you keep alluding to, it must be that way. Because again, if you've got a non-owner, non-driver, it must be the case that the manufacturer, or at least companies with whom they've worked to produce and provide that transport, it must be the case that they're fully liable. I mean, how else would it be? You're not going to hold a passenger of an airplane liable when an airplane goes down.
Absolutely.
As I always say, what's the difference between a tube with wings and a box with wheels? At the end of the day, it's just a thing getting some people in a container from A to B.